Hi folks, I'm Dan Dworkis, and this is the Emergency Mind Project, a space where we bring together lessons from the emergency department and beyond about performance when it matters the most and applying knowledge under pressure. In this critical concepts video, we're going to dive deep into a core idea or mental model that we use in the Emergency Mind Project, and we're going to do it in about 5 minutes and about 5 slides. Ready? All right, let's get to it. All right, folks, our model this time is the Johari Window. Now, the Johari window is all about this idea. So the room is always smarter than any one person in it, right? That means your team is always smarter than you as an individual. But it is really hard to get everybody in the room doing the same thing, right? Now, this is true over long, slow time frames of projects, and it's especially true in the rapid cycle, complex, adaptive problem sets that we face in the emergency department and in other arenas where folks that are part of the Emergency Mind Project work. So just drop yourself in here with me for a moment, right? So this is a cardiac arrest case. Imagine you are the team leader of a group of individuals, a doctor, maybe doctors, nurses, a pharmacist, respiratory therapist, and you all are coming together at this person's room in order to help save their life, right? They've gone into cardiac arrest, their heart is stopped, and it's going to be up to you and your team to get it going again. So as the leader, you're in charge, right? You're setting the plan, you're setting the next priorities, you're making sure everything is going according to what you want it to do, and you're sort of steering the ship. But there's a really high chance that there's lots of other people in this room that have other points of view than you do, right? They see things that you're not able to see, either physically because you're blocked or because they have just a different way of thinking about things. They have different ideas and different sort of plans. Your patient needs you to get everybody in that room on the same page playing the same game, but it is challenging. There's things like hierarchies and resistance and frustration and communication difficulties. All of this plays into why it's so challenging to get everybody on the same page. So enter the Johari window. Now, the Johari window was created in the 1950s by these two psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham. And Johari is actually just an amalgamation of Joseph and Harrington, which I think is kind of cool. And they originally designed it to do sort of psychological work on individuals and people in relationships. And we're going to sort of stretch it a little bit to apply to team resuscitation dynamics. All right, so here's the Johari window, and the Johari window takes everything in the world and splits it into this matrix. And let's look at the columns first, because the columns is about you, and it asks, do you know it, yes or no? And then on the rows, we have, do they know it? Does everybody else in your team who's trying to solve the same problem know it? Again, yes or no. So right away, you can see that there's a 2x2 matrix, and we have a column, we have a square in the upper left, which is yes and yes. That's the stuff that everybody knows, right? That's the open in the arena. That's what we're all playing with. Then you have stuff that you know, but your team doesn't. That's kind of your secret. And you have stuff that your team knows, but you don't know yet, and that's your blind spot. And then in the bottom right, where nobody knows it, that's the unknown. So we can talk right away about how information flows through a complex team using the Johari window. So if you are trying to get information from your blind spot into the open, right, you're asking your team for information, you can think about this as pulling information. Conversely, if you want to deliver a command or an order, or you want to pass information on to the rest of your team, you can think about this as pushing information from what you know into what they don't yet know. We're going to talk a lot in these critical concept videos about the how to do this, right? The details about different models about both pulling and pushing information. But I do want to give you one example in this critical concept video before we open it up to others. So let's drop this idea back into that idea of a team resuscitation dynamic when we are doing a critical case like a cardiac arrest. Imagine that you are the team leader, and in this case, we're going to think about pulling information, right? So one time that you might want to pull information is when you have a plan, you think you know what's going on, you have a mental model, but you want to see if anybody else in the room has a better idea. Right? So one way to say this, to pull this information, is to say, hey team, I think that we're working a VTAC model here that's probably because of hyperkalemia. And if you're not in medicine, don't worry about that, right? The point is, here's my model, here's what I think is happening. Then you're going to say, who else has a different idea? Who else sees something different? Please speak up. And that's an invitation to pull information from the rest of the team back to you. Conversely, as a leader, you might want to set a priority, right? And you want to make sure that everybody in the room knows what your priority is next. So imagine a circumstance where you are going to roll a patient in order to place a defibrillator pad on their back. And to do that, you have to pause CPR. You have to change the priorities of everybody in the room, right? That's an opportunity to push information. So in that moment, you might say something like this. Hey folks, in a moment but not yet, we are going to pause CPR. Our purpose will be to place a defibrillator pad on this patient's back. When I say so, we're going to roll to the left, to the patient's left. We're going to place the pad, we're going to roll back, and we're going to immediately restart CPR. Does everybody understand the plan? Great. All right. On my 3, we're going to roll. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now you can see even in those very simple examples, there's pushing within pulling and there's pulling within pushing. Gets complicated, gets interesting. There's a ton to dive into this model. It's why one of my favorite ones to use, to teach, and to think through. All right, so here's your challenge as you're listening to this, which is how can you improve how you push and pull information with your team in the coming week? Now that can be as simple as talking it through, or it can be more complicated, like setting up a couple of guidelines about how we are going to push or pull information in a particular moment. All right, there you have it. That's the Johari window. Do you know it? Do they know it? How do you get everything as much as possible into the open? And how do you get your team facing the same problem set? I hope you enjoyed that. If you thought that's useful and you want to learn more, head over to the Emergency Mind Project. We would love to have you. There are so many ways to get involved with the great work going on there. The easiest is just head to emergencymind.com. All right, good luck out there.